What's the pettiest way a sibling ruined your big day? The day of the wedding finally came. I was nervous but excited. Everything was perfectly timed, or at least it was supposed to be. I walked into the bridal suite that morning, ready to sit down with my stylist, when I froze. There was Claire, sitting in my chair, draped in the stylist cape, halfway through a full glam session. Foundation, contour, lashes, the works. And not only was she using my stylist, she looked completely smug about it. I blinked and said, "Claire, what are you doing?" "That's my chair." Without missing a beat, she smirked and said, "Don't worry, I told them to do me first. You don't want me looking like a mess in your photos, right?" I just stood there, stunned. My stylist looked horrified and started apologizing, saying she'd been told I was running late and that Claire insisted it would save time. I snapped, "Get out of the chair." Claire rolled her eyes like I was being ridiculous. "God, you're so controlling. It's just hair. You'll still get your turn." "Just hair? On my wedding day?" I wanted to scream. Instead, I sat down and waited, fuming, while Claire got pampered with the exact treatment I had paid for. By the time it was finally my turn, we were behind schedule. Of course, she tossed her hair and said, "See, didn't hurt to share, did it?" That was just the beginning. When we lined up for photos before the ceremony, she kept pulling faces in the background, adjusting her dress dramatically, or stepping into shots she wasn't supposed to be in. When the photographer gently tried to redirect her, she laughed. "Oh, relax. Everyone knows I'm the prettier sister. You want me in these." I tried to brush it off because I didn't want to let her ruin my mood. But then came the ceremony itself. As I was saying my vows, Claire suddenly stood up from her seat in the aisle. Not to fix anything, not to help anyone, no. She stood directly in front of the professional photographer, phone in hand, snapping selfies. I couldn't believe it. My officiant paused mid-sentence, clearly thrown off. A murmur went through the crowd. My maid of honor actually waved at her to sit down, and Claire just smiled. My wedding photos are now forever dotted with Claire standing there, phone angled, blocking the photographer's perfect shots. After the ceremony, guests tried to politely laugh it off, but I could see the second-hand embarrassment on their faces. My new husband whispered, "What is wrong with her?" I had no answer. Then came the reception. My maid of honor gave a beautiful toast that had me in tears. People clapped, raised their glasses, and it felt like, finally, the day was back on track. But of course, Claire wasn't done. Before the mic could even be put away, she lunged forward, snatched it, and said, wait, I want to say something too." I braced myself, praying it would be something supportive. Instead, she laughed and said, "I just want to remind everyone that I'm graduating next month with my master's degree, so don't forget who the real success in the family is." I was humiliated. This was supposed to be my milestone, and she'd hijacked it to brag about herself. Later, I pulled her aside and hissed, "You've ruined my wedding. Do you even hear yourself?" She smirked, unfazed. Nobody cares about weddings anymore. My degree is a real achievement. People will forget your little party, but my success is forever. I snapped and said, loud enough for people nearby to hear, "You can keep trying to steal the spotlight, but all you'll ever be remembered for is being the jealous sister who couldn't let anyone else have a moment." Her face went pale. She stormed out, theatrically slamming the door. And you know what? After she left, the entire atmosphere improved. But just when I thought the nightmare was over, my phone buzzed with a notification. Claire had gone live on social media, ranting about how I humiliated her in front of everyone. Little did I know, the real fallout of her stunt was only just beginning. I grabbed my phone to check what was happening, and there was Claire on Instagram Live, mascara running down her face, sobbing to her 3,000 followers. She was sitting in her car outside the venue, voice shaking as she told everyone how I'd attacked her unprovoked at my own wedding. The comments were already flooding in, people calling me a bridezilla, saying I was jealous of her success, asking if I was drunk or mentally unstable. My hands started shaking as I watched her twist everything that happened, leaving out how she hijacked my stylist and blocked the photographer during our vows. She kept dabbing at her eyes with a tissue, telling her followers she just wanted to celebrate with me, but I couldn't handle sharing any attention. The lies made my stomach turn, but what really got me was seeing mutual friends commenting, people who weren't at the wedding believing every word. My husband noticed me staring at the screen and gently took the phone from my hands, sliding it into his pocket. He pulled me close and said we should ignore it for tonight and just enjoy our last dance as newlyweds. The DJ started playing our song and we moved to the dance floor, but I could feel everyone checking their phones around us. Some guests were whispering behind their hands, others shooting me sympathetic looks that made it clear they'd seen Claire's livestream too. My aunt came up during the dance to hug me and whisper that Claire was being ridiculous, but even her support couldn't stop the knot forming in my chest. We stayed another hour, cutting the cake and tossing the bouquet, but the magic was gone and everyone could feel it. By the time we got back to our hotel room, I was exhausted and just wanted to forget the whole mess. The next morning should have been perfect, waking up next to my new husband after our wedding night. Instead, my phone was buzzing nonstop on the nightstand with 47 text messages and 19 missed calls. Most were from people asking if I was okay or what really happened, but some were from Claire's friends calling me horrible names. I scrolled through them in disbelief until I saw Candace Lopez's name pop up with a new call coming in. Candace was my roommate all through college and she knew Claire's patterns better than almost anyone. She'd seen the live stream and wanted to make sure I was alright, saying Claire was clearly spinning things for sympathy. I started telling her what actually happened but could barely get through it without my voice cracking from frustration. Before I could even finish breakfast, Mom called and I knew immediately from her tone that this wasn't a supportive check-in. She launched right into scolding me for making a scene at my own wedding and embarrassing Claire in front of everyone. She insisted I needed to apologize immediately because family is more important than one day of attention. I tried explaining how Claire had hijacked my stylist, disrupted the ceremony, and announced her graduation during my reception. Mom cut me off mid-sentence, saying Claire is sensitive and I should have been more understanding of her need to feel included. She mentioned Claire was getting nasty messages now from strangers online and somehow that was my fault for not keeping my composure. The guilt trip was in full swing as she reminded me that we only have one sister and I'd regret this feud forever. I pointed out that Claire literally stood up during my vows to take selfies, but Mom just sighed like I was exaggerating. She said Claire told her she was just trying to capture the moment and I overreacted because I'm controlling. The conversation ended with Mom saying she was disappointed in me and expected better from her oldest daughter. 20 minutes later, Dad sent a group text to both Claire and me with a long message about working this out like adults. He wrote that family disagreements happen but we need to remember what's really important and move forward together. Claire responded within seconds, playing victim perfectly, saying she was heartbroken that I couldn't let her celebrate my special day too. She claimed she only wanted to share in my joy but I'd turned it into something ugly and hurtful for no reason. Dad hearted her message immediately, which felt like a punch to the gut since he hadn't even asked for my side. I typed out 3 different responses explaining what really happened but deleted them all, knowing it was pointless. That afternoon, the photographer emailed asking if I wanted him to edit Claire out of the ceremony photos where she was blocking shots. He'd reviewed the footage and could remove her from about 12 key moments, but it would take extra time and cost another $400. He was professional about it, saying he understood family dynamics could be complicated and he'd seen similar situations before. I stared at the sample photos he'd attached, seeing Claire's phone-wielding silhouette in front of our kiss, our ring exchange, our first look as husband and wife. The editing would help, but couldn't undo the fact that those moments were disrupted in real time, in front of all our guests. My phone kept buzzing with notifications as Claire posted edited clips from the wedding on her Instagram stories throughout the day. Each video was carefully cut to show only her crying face after our confrontation, never the behavior that led to it. She added captions about toxic family members and how success brings out jealousy in others, clearly implying I was threatened by her master's degree. Her followers were eating it up, sharing her posts with supportive messages about cutting out negative people and protecting your peace. Then the venue coordinator called about additional charges because the delayed schedule from Claire's morning stunt pushed everything back 2 hours. The overtime for staff, extended rental and additional service charges came to $800 we hadn't budgeted for. She was apologetic but firm that the contract specified these charges for any delays, regardless of the reason. My husband took the phone and handled the payment details while I sat there calculating how much Claire's need for attention had cost us. Just when I thought it couldn't get worse, my maid of honor started sending screenshots of Claire's posts from her backup account. Claire was claiming she'd always supported me, but I'd been jealous of her achievements since we were kids. She was literally rewriting our entire history, telling her followers about times I'd supposedly sabotaged her or tried to dim her light. The woman who couldn't let me have one single day was painting herself as the long-suffering sister who finally stood up for herself. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing, so I grabbed it to check what was happening now. Claire had posted a 10-slide carousel on Instagram with the title Surviving Narcissistic Abuse from Toxic Family Members, complete with crying selfies and inspirational quotes. Each slide detailed how she'd been emotionally abused by someone who couldn't handle her success. The comments were pouring in from her followers offering support and sharing their own stories about toxic siblings. She turned my wedding day into content for her victim narrative and people were eating it up. The irony of calling me narcissistic after she hijacked my wedding would have been funny if I wasn't so mad. My phone rang and it was Candace calling to check if I'd seen the posts. She mentioned her husband Blair works in social media management and could help me document everything before Claire deleted anything. He said keeping records might be important later if things escalated further. I hadn't even thought about the legal side of this, but Blair was right that Claire might delete things when she calmed down. We drove over to their house that evening and spent 3 hours screenshotting every single post, comment, story, and the livestream replay from the wedding. Blair showed me how to properly archive everything with timestamps and metadata that would hold up if we ever needed proof. He created a folder system organizing everything by date and platform while Candace helped me save the videos in multiple formats. Claire had posted way more than I realized, including stories calling me jealous and bitter about her achievements. The livestream replay was the worst part because you could hear guests gasping when she stood up during the vows. Blair downloaded the original file and made backups on 3 different drives just to be safe. Mom called while we were still archiving and immediately launched into how upset she was that I hadn't apologized yet. She warned that Claire might not come to Christmas if this continued and acted like that was some huge threat. I tried explaining how Claire had hijacked my stylist, disrupted the ceremony and announced her graduation during my reception. Mom cut me off saying I was being dramatic and Claire was just excited to share her news with family. She kept insisting that one day wasn't worth destroying our relationship over and I needed to be the mature one. The guilt trip continued for 20 minutes before I finally told her I had to go. The next morning my photographer emailed sample edits where he'd managed to remove Claire from some of the ceremony shots. He'd done amazing work but you could still see the disruption in guests' faces, and some moments were just lost forever. The kiss photos still showed people looking sideways at where Claire had been standing with her phone. He could fix the visual but not the memory of that moment being interrupted. The edited photos would cost an extra $400 on top of everything else Claire's stunts had already cost us. I decided to post a simple thank you message to our wedding guests with a few photos where Claire wasn't visible. Within minutes of posting, Claire commented asking why I was erasing family from my special day with a crying emoji. Her followers immediately started flooding my post calling me petty and cruel for excluding my own sister from the photos. People who weren't even at the wedding were judging me based on Claire's version of events. They accused me of being jealous, controlling, and unable to share the spotlight with anyone. My notifications became a nightmare of strangers attacking my character based on lies. Some of them even found my work profile and started leaving nasty comments there too. My husband sat down next to me and gently suggested we take a social media break to focus on our honeymoon next week. He pointed out that responding would only fuel the fire and give Claire more content to twist. But I knew if I went silent, Claire would use that to control the narrative even more than she already was. She'd spin my absence as guilt or admission that she was right all along. We were stuck between engaging with the drama or letting her lies go unchallenged. That evening Dad called privately while Mom was out shopping and admitted Claire had been wrong at the wedding. But then he immediately asked me to be the bigger person because I'm more mature and always have been. He mentioned Mom was stressed and this whole situation was affecting her health and blood pressure. He wanted me to apologize just to keep the peace even though he knew I hadn't done anything wrong. The conversation felt like every other time Claire had acted out and I was expected to smooth things over. 3 days after the wedding, Claire posted about her upcoming graduation ceremony next month with a caption about hoping her family could be supportive unlike some people. The passive-aggressive shots just kept coming with each post getting more dramatic than the last. She shared old photos of us as kids with captions about how she missed when we were close before jealousy ruined everything. Her followers responded with messages about cutting out toxic people and protecting your peace at all costs. Every post was carefully crafted to paint me as the villain in her story while she played the innocent victim. Monday morning I walked into the office carrying my coffee and trying to look normal when my coworker Sarah stopped me at my desk. She pulled out her phone and showed me Claire's latest video with over 50,000 views already. My stomach dropped as I watched strangers in the comments calling me toxic and abusive based on Claire's lies. Sarah asked if I was okay and mentioned that several people in the office had seen it over the weekend. I realized this wasn't just family drama anymore because now my professional reputation was taking hits from Claire's viral content. I sat at my desk and tried to focus on work but my hands were shaking as more notifications popped up on my phone. During my lunch break I searched for therapists who specialized in family dynamics and found Cecilia Edwards who had an opening that same week. I booked an emergency session for Thursday because I needed professional help to handle this without completely losing it. The rest of the workday dragged as I kept checking my phone to see Claire's follower count growing by the hour. Thursday afternoon I sat in Cecilia's office and told her everything from the wedding morning to the current social media nightmare. She listened without judgment and then explained that Claire showed classic signs of narcissistic behavior patterns that I'd been dealing with my whole life. We spent the session working on boundary-setting strategies that didn't require my parents' approval or understanding. Cecilia helped me see that I wasn't crazy for being upset and that my feelings were completely valid given what happened. She gave me homework to write down every boundary violation Claire had committed just at the wedding alone. The list ended up being 3 pages long when I sat down that night to write it all out. Friday morning my phone rang while I was getting ready for work and the wedding videographer's name appeared on the screen. He explained that he'd been editing the footage and Claire was visible in a lot of it including standing up during the vows. He could minimize her presence in some shots but warned that he couldn't completely remove her from everything. The disruption she caused was captured from multiple angles and some key moments were just ruined forever. He offered to do what he could but it would take extra time and cost more money on top of everything else. I agreed to the additional editing because I wanted at least some footage where she wasn't the center of attention. That same afternoon Mom sent a group text to the whole family about Claire's graduation ceremony next month. She wrote that everyone needed to attend and support Claire and that we should all put this behind us by then. The message acted like nothing had happened at my wedding and expected me to just show up and celebrate Claire. I stared at the text for 20 minutes before typing my response that I needed space from Claire and wouldn't be attending. Within 30 seconds of hitting send, my phone rang with Mom's picture filling the screen. She was crying before I even said hello and immediately launched into how I was tearing the family apart. She said Claire was devastated that I wouldn't support her achievement and that I was being petty and vindictive. I tried explaining that Claire had ruined my wedding, but Mom cut me off saying graduation was more important than a party. She hung up on me when I refused to change my mind about not attending. Saturday morning I woke up to hundreds of notifications because Claire had posted a TikTok about toxic siblings who can't celebrate others' success. The video already had thousands of views and complete strangers were commenting about their own family drama. People who had never met me were calling me jealous and bitter based on Claire's performance for the camera. She'd edited together clips to make herself look like a victim of sibling rivalry gone too far. My husband found me crying in the bathroom and held me while I showed him the latest attack. His parents called that afternoon after seeing some of the posts through mutual friends on social media. They were horrified by Claire's behavior and couldn't believe my parents were enabling it instead of shutting it down. My mother-in-law suggested we might want to consider legal options if Claire kept spreading lies about me online. My father-in-law said he'd never seen such blatant narcissism and offered to pay for a lawyer if we needed one. Their support meant everything when my own parents were taking Claire's side. Sunday I met Blair at a coffee shop where he helped me draft a cease and desist letter about the defamatory posts. He explained that having the letter ready didn't mean we had to send it but sometimes having options helped. We spent 3 hours crafting language that was legally sound but not overly aggressive in case we decided to use it. Blair showed me how to document everything properly including screenshots with timestamps and URLs for evidence. He created a folder system to organize all the posts, comments, and videos in chronological order. Week 2 after my wedding I returned to work trying to act normal but my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Every notification made my heart race wondering if it was another attack from Claire or someone else piling on. My productivity was completely shot as I kept checking social media to see what new lies were being spread. My manager pulled me aside and gently asked if everything was okay because she'd noticed I seemed distracted lately. I gave a vague answer about family stress, but could tell she knew something more was going on. The worst part was knowing that Claire was winning because she'd successfully made my wedding about her drama instead. Even weeks later, people were still talking about her posts instead of celebrating my marriage. 3 days later, Cecilia sat next to me at her office computer while we worked on an email to my parents. She typed while I talked through what I needed to say about taking space from Claire. We spent an hour getting the words just right, making sure it was firm but not mean. I sent it before I could second-guess myself and watched the read receipt pop up almost immediately. Within minutes, Claire had posted a whole album of childhood photos on Instagram. Each picture showed us as kids with captions about how we used to be best friends before I became jealous of her success. She posted one of us at my 8th birthday party with a caption saying I'd always needed to be the center of attention. Another showed us at her high school graduation where she wrote that I couldn't handle her achievements even back then. The comments poured in from strangers saying how sad it was when siblings grew apart. My phone rang with a voicemail notification from the wedding venue while I was still looking at her posts. The coordinator's cheerful voice asked if I'd leave them a review since it had been a few weeks since the event. I deleted the message without listening to the whole thing because just hearing about the venue made my stomach hurt. The next morning I was working from home when I heard a car door slam in my driveway. Mom stood at my front door with her purse clutched tight and her eyes already red from crying. She pushed past me into the living room and started begging me to apologize to Claire before her graduation next week. She actually suggested I post something nice about Claire online to fix everything. I told her Claire needed to take responsibility for ruining my wedding first. Mom's face got hard and she said I was being stubborn and vindictive just like always. She left after 20 minutes of me refusing to budge, slamming my door the same way Claire had at the wedding. That weekend my husband showed me Claire's new YouTube channel where she'd started a series called Healing from Family Trauma. The first episode already had 12,000 views and she sat there crying about how her own sister had turned against her. She talked about growing up with someone who couldn't celebrate her wins and made everything a competition. The comments were full of people sharing their own stories and calling me a textbook narcissist without knowing anything real. My husband's sister texted him screenshots the next day of messages Claire had sent her on Facebook. Claire wrote long paragraphs about how I'd always been mentally unstable and jealous. She told his sister that marrying into our family meant dealing with my mood swings and victim complex. His sister was disgusted and blocked Claire immediately, but we knew she'd probably messaged other family members too. Blair came over that night with his laptop to help us finalize the cease and desist letter we'd been working on. Claire's latest video claimed I'd been emotionally abusive since we were kids and that was the final straw. We made sure every word was legally solid and sent it through certified mail the next morning. 2 days later, Claire posted a tearful video titled "My Sister is Trying to Silence Me with Legal Threats." She held up the letter and cried about how I was using lawyers to bully her into silence. Her followers started a hashtag called Stand With Claire that started trending in our area. People I'd never met were posting about toxic siblings and sharing Claire's videos to support her. Dad called that night and he was angrier than I'd ever heard him. He yelled that we'd gone too far with the legal letter and demanded we withdraw it immediately. He kept saying real families don't use lawyers and we needed to handle this privately. I tried to explain that Claire had forced this by spreading lies publicly, but he cut me off. He said I should have come to them first instead of involving lawyers and making everything worse. When I reminded him that Mom had already taken Claire's side, he got quiet for a second. Then he said I was tearing the family apart over one bad day and hung up on me. I sat there holding my phone and staring at the blank screen for a long time after Dad hung up. My hands were shaking as I texted him back that Claire had posted lies about me being abusive since childhood and I had to protect myself legally. He responded within minutes saying I should have talked to them before involving lawyers and that real families work things out privately. I typed back screenshots of Claire's videos where she called me mentally unstable and toxic to thousands of strangers online. Dad left me on read for 3 days before finally texting that I was being dramatic and needed to grow up. 2 weeks passed with no contact from my parents while Claire kept posting new content about healing from family trauma and getting hundreds of supportive comments. Then 3 weeks before her graduation, Claire announced on Instagram that she was having a huge celebration party at a fancy restaurant downtown. In the same post she wrote that she was protecting her peace by not inviting certain toxic family members who knew who they were. The comments section exploded with people congratulating her for setting boundaries and putting herself first. My phone buzzed with screenshots from cousins and family friends asking if I'd seen what she posted. I deleted every message without responding and drove to my appointment with Cecilia that afternoon. She sat across from me in her office and reminded me that Claire's constant need for attention and playing victim had nothing to do with who I was as a person. We spent the whole session working through the guilt I felt about missing family events and how to separate my worth from my family's opinions. Cecilia helped me write out affirmations about how choosing peace over toxic relationships was an act of self-love, not selfishness. The day of Claire's graduation came and went without me there while I stayed home reorganizing closets and trying not to think about it. That night Mom called crying and saying the graduation party wasn't the same without me and everyone kept asking where I was. I stayed calm and reminded her that she chose to enable Claire's behavior instead of protecting both her daughters equally. Mom got quiet and then said I was punishing the whole family for Claire's mistakes, which wasn't fair to anyone. She hung up when I pointed out that nobody punished Claire for ruining my wedding with her attention-seeking stunts. A month after the wedding I finally felt ready to post our professional photos on social media. I uploaded 10 beautiful shots where Claire wasn't visible and wrote a simple caption about being grateful for our marriage and looking forward to our future together. Before anyone could comment, I turned off the commenting feature completely to avoid any drama or Claire's followers finding the post. Within 2 hours, Claire had posted her own video compilation titled Wedding Memories using clips from my wedding that she'd recorded on her phone. She edited it to only show moments where she looked amazing and I looked stressed or upset with emotional music playing in the background. The video description talked about how she tried so hard to support me, but some people just can't be happy for others. My husband found the video first and showed it to me with his jaw clenched in anger. We sat on our couch that night and made the decision to block Claire on every single platform, including email and phone numbers. We also sent messages to both our families asking them to stop updating us about Claire's posts or anything she was doing. My husband's family understood immediately, but my parents sent long guilt trip texts about how we were tearing the family apart. 2 months after our wedding, we finally took our delayed honeymoon to Hawaii that we'd postponed because of all the drama. Being on the beach without phones constantly buzzing with family drama felt like we could breathe again for the first time in months. We spent 7 days just being newlyweds without Claire's shadow hanging over everything we did. The ocean air and distance from home helped us reconnect and remember why we got married in the first place. We talked about our future plans and dreams without once mentioning my sister or the wedding disaster. Coming home felt like returning to reality, but we were stronger as a couple after that week away. 3 days after we got back, Mom called and invited us to Sunday dinner at their house. She promised multiple times that Claire wouldn't be there and she just wanted to see us and catch up. My husband was skeptical, but I missed my parents despite everything, so we agreed to go. The moment we walked in, I could smell Mom's pot roast and everything felt normal for about 5 minutes. Then Mom started talking about how Claire was struggling since graduation and really missed having her sister in her life. She pulled out her phone to show us pictures of Claire looking sad at various family gatherings since the wedding. Mom spent the entire meal trying to convince us that Claire had learned her lesson and we should give her another chance. She kept saying things like family is forever and we'd regret this when we were older. Dad mostly stayed quiet but nodded along with everything Mom said about forgiveness and moving forward. By the time dessert came around, I'd heard enough guilt tripping to last a lifetime. I put down my fork and told Mom clearly that I was done discussing Claire forever. I said if she couldn't respect that boundary, then we'd have to limit our contact with her too. Mom's face crumpled and tears started rolling down her cheeks, but I could see something shift in her eyes. She finally understood I was completely serious about protecting my peace, even if it meant less time with them. 3 months went by without any contact from Claire and life started feeling normal again. My husband and I painted our spare bedroom, adopted a rescue dog named Max, and settled into married life without constant drama. Then one random Tuesday morning while I was making coffee, my phone started buzzing with notifications from mutual friends. Claire had posted a huge announcement on every social media platform about getting engaged to some guy she'd been dating for 4 months. The caption read, "Can't wait to show everyone what a real wedding looks like, not some rush disaster like certain people had." My husband saw it over my shoulder and started to get mad, but I just shrugged and deleted the notifications without responding. The old me would have been furious, but honestly I didn't care about her engagement or her obvious jabs at our wedding. We spent that weekend hiking with Max and planning our garden for spring without checking social media once. Mom called to tell me about Claire's engagement party plans, but I cut her off and said we had plans that day before she could even finish. 3 more months passed and we decided to host a small dinner for our 6-month anniversary with just the friends who had supported us through everything. Candace and Blair came over early to help cook while my maid of honor brought dessert and wine. We sat around our dining table laughing about normal things like work stories and vacation plans without anyone mentioning family drama. Everyone toasted to our marriage and said how happy we looked compared to the stressed couple at the wedding reception. My husband grabbed our wedding album from the shelf and we flipped through the edited photos the photographer had worked so hard to fix. Sure, you could still see some weird expressions on guest faces, and a few shots were missing because of Claire's interference. But looking at those pictures now, I saw myself marrying my best friend surrounded by people who actually cared about us. The photos showed genuine smiles during our first dance, tears of joy from his mom during the ceremony, and our friends cheering as we cut the cake. Claire had tried so hard to ruin that day, but she couldn't touch what really mattered, which was the commitment we made to each other. My husband pointed to a photo where we're both laughing at something his best man said and reminded me that was right after Claire stormed out. We realized that the best parts of our wedding happened after she left and took her toxic energy with her. The marriage we've built these 6 months is worth more than any single day could ever be, even if that day had been perfect. We put the album away and went back to our guests, grateful for the peace we'd found by choosing our marriage over family drama.